This is a highly requested part 2 video. If you want to check out part 1 right here, I'll leave that link in the description for you. This is where a YouTuber was questioning my desire to eliminate government altogether, and he was saying things like, well, we can't get rid of the government because if we did, we wouldn't have roads, we wouldn't have schools, bridges, clean running water, like you always hear people say. But the factor there is, because we have to define some terms, and the two terms that I defined in the last video was the term government and the term anarchy, because it's perceived that if we get rid of the government, we're going to have anarchy. Oh my gosh, anarchy. But people don't even understand what anarchy is when they use that term. And you can go to Merriam-Webster and it will have a synonym for the word anarchy. And that synonym, one of those synonyms will be chaos. But that couldn't be further from the truth. If you just look at the etymological definition of anarchy, it just means without rulers or no rulers. And the term government is often misunderstood as well, because the etymological makeup of government comes from two Latin words, governo, which means to control, and mentis, which means the mind, or to control the mind, or mind control. And that's what government is. And practically lived out, government is a group of people who feel like and live like they have a higher claim over your life and property than you, to such an extent that they don't have any problems initiating force and violence on innocent people who haven't done anything wrong. And what their idea is, these people in this thing called government, is that we have the moral right to rule you, and you have the moral obligation to obey us. And if you don't obey us, then you've committed a crime. So the first word that we had to define was government. The second word was anarchy. Government means to control the mind. Anarchy means without rulers. And then if you disobey those rulers, these rulers in government, then you've committed a crime. So the third thing we're going to define here is crime, because it used to be that crime, the very definition of crime was that there was an injured party. There was a victim. Somebody got physically harmed, or somebody's stuff was stolen, or their property was damaged. That would be a crime. It's an unwelcome, when somebody comes into your life in an unwelcome way and hits you or takes your stuff without your consent. Only then can there be a crime. But the fourth thing we have to define is laws, because if you disobey the laws of the rulers in government, they say you've committed a crime. You haven't harmed anybody. You haven't threatened to harm anybody. You haven't taken anybody's stuff. You haven't damaged somebody's property. You haven't done anything against somebody else's will without their consent. But the state agents say you have committed a crime if you disobey us. And that is 100% a lie. And let me give you an example, because if you look up the definition of crime, almost every definition you look at is the breaking of a law or disobedience to government. Let me just demonstrate how that is utterly insane. And I'm going to use the prohibition law from 1920 to 1933. When Prohibition went into effect at 11:59, 1 minute before midnight, 1 minute before the day Prohibition went into effect. You were absolutely fine having a bottle of whiskey and drinking it or selling it or doing whatever you wanted to with that bottle of whiskey. When the clock struck 12, in the eyes of the state, you immediately became a criminal who committed a crime because you disobeyed a ruler who said you can't have that bottle of whiskey, you can't drink that bottle of whiskey, you can't sell that bottle of whiskey. And let me just add a little bit of insult to the injury of government. I live in Oklahoma. When it's 12 o'clock midnight in Oklahoma, it's 10 o'clock at night in California. So when that prohibition, that federal prohibition law went into effect at 12 midnight Oklahoma time, I was a criminal. But I could call my friend Bob in California and say, hey, Bob, I can't drink whiskey now. If I do drink this bottle, actually, I own a bottle of whiskey. I'm a criminal right now. And if I drink this or sell it, I'm even more of a criminal in the eyes of the state. And he could say, well, Brian, you know what? I got 2 hours before I become a criminal. That's nonsense. First of all, men cannot make laws. There are biological laws, there are scientific laws, there are mathematical laws. A man cannot create a law. He can express an opinion. He can write that opinion down on a fancy piece of paper. He can get all of his buddies to agree that, yeah, that's your opinion, and we need to enforce that opinion on other people. And if those other people disobey, then we're going to send enforcers to punish them. But it's still an opinion. It's not a law. So to show you the utter insanity of this idea that men can create laws, just look at prohibition, look at our drug laws. And then we use all these euphemisms like it's a war against drugs. It's not a war against drugs. It's a war against people. If these people disobey the commands of politicians, they've committed a crime, and they're lawbreakers, and now they're criminals because they disobeyed the opinions of politicians. So a law is nothing more today than the opinions of politicians backed by the threat of force. A crime is when you've committed a sin against the state and now you've got to be punished. So it's looking like government is something that you have to have faith in. It's a total mind thing. First of all, it's illegitimate to say I have a higher claim over your life and property than you because I say so, or 25 of my buddies say so, or 535 of my buddies in Congress say that we have a higher claim over your life and property than you. And if you don't pay your property taxes, we're going to send enforcers in and we're going to fine you. If you don't pay the fine, we're going to foreclose on your house and you're going to have to move somewhere else because that's our land. That's called slavery. This isn't the land of the free, home of the brave. This is the land of the fee and home of the slave. And people go, well, without government, how are we going to build the roads? How are we going to have schools? How are we going to have bridges? The same way we do under government. We do it through people, but we don't do it by force. We don't put a gun to your head and say, if you don't pay for these roads, then you will have to go to prison. You are a criminal. You will be thrown into a cage for the rest of your life until you become part of society and pay your fair share, like Bernie Sanders says. Pay your fair share. We got to provide universal health care, universal college tuition. I mean, are we going to be saying in 20 years if they get all this stuff passed, well, without government, how are we going to have universal health care? Without government, how are we going to pay for college tuition? Without government, how are we going to support the Green New Deal? Government eliminates competition. That's what government does. And when you eliminate competition and you take that competition out of the marketplace, the free market is not incentivized. Well, actually, you've taken away the free market. Because when you eliminate competition, there's no incentive for a competitor, because they don't exist, for them to do better against their other competitors, lowering prices, increasing quality. When you put the element of government, when you mix it into the equation, the quality goes down and prices go up. We've seen this time and time again. Everybody knows this. So when you add the element or the ingredient of government into anything, it makes everything worse. So let me just recap real quick. Government is mind control. Governo mentis, to control the mind. Anarchy is simply without rulers. We don't need rulers. If you believe that you don't need a ruler in your life, you're an anarchist. If you got up this morning and you brushed your teeth and you put the clothes on that you wanted to put on and you went to the job you wanted to go to and you lived in the house in the area that you wanted to, you're a practical anarchist. You're saying, I don't want somebody else dictating what I do with my life, how much money I make, where I spend it. You're a practical anarchist. Anarchy is not a bad word. Anarchy does not equal Molotov cocktails thrown into the street by a masked bandit while cars are burning in the background and there's broken windows and glass everywhere. That's not anarchy. That's chaos. It's not anarchy. So government is to control the mind. Anarchy is without rulers. Crime has to have the victim. Where there is no victim, there is no crime. There can't be a crime if there's no victim. And laws are nothing more than the opinions of politicians backed by the threat of force, and we don't need them. As a matter of fact, the more laws you have, the less freedoms you have. And so I have a lot more, many more definitions. If you want me to do a part 3, let me know. But basically what government is, what the state is It's a religion, and it's a religious belief. It's you believing somebody else has the higher claim over your life and property than you, that they are allowed to initiate unjust force and violence on other people who haven't done anything wrong. And if you did the same thing that those in government did, you would be a criminal and you would rightly be judged and go to jail. But they can do it and they can get away with it because it's government. That's a construct of belief. That's a faith. It's a belief in the church called the state, and you're worshiping the God called government to such an extent where you're saying, without this God, we cannot have roads. We cannot have schools. We cannot have bridges without the God called government. Think about what you're saying, guys. If you're saying you need government, and without government, none of these things would national parks. We couldn't have these nice parks and these beautiful roads strewn with potholes. We just couldn't have them. You've checked out. You've checked out of reality, because government is mind control. Your mind is being controlled to such an extent where you think you need the God of government. Your God's going to save you and give you all these nice little things. Yeah, yes, I want services like roads, schools, bridges, clean running water. Who doesn't want that? But I don't want to initiate force and violence on people, and I don't want to threaten them in order to get those things, because that ends does not justify the means. How could we ever do it then? How can we do it without government? Have you ever heard of the Pareto principle? 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. It's the law of the precious few, always doing all the work. That's what we would have without government, and things would be cheaper, and things would be better quality. If you guys want me to do a part 3 of this, I'll be glad to. This video's run a little bit longer than I thought it would, but if you guys enjoy these videos, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know, and if you disagree with anything that I said, leave them in the comment section below. Don't just hit the like button and scram. Let's talk about this. I'm a reasonable person, and I think we can sit down and have a reasonable discussion about this. But we don't need a violent gang of thugs threatening to do bad things to us if we don't submit to them. We don't need that in our lives in order to have roads, schools, bridges, clean running water, state parks, and all these other nice things that we all want. So leave your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored shadow ban video. If you guys enjoy these videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, and share it with everybody you know. Also, check out over 100 hard-hitting designs in the shirt store, and if you want to support more content, hit me up on Patreon or PayPal. All those links will be in the description and in the pinned comment. I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored shadow ban video.